There's something no self-esteem advice has ever told you, and it's this. True self-love doesn't just empower you, it makes you magnetic. Not because of what you give, but because of what you radiate without even realizing it. And when you learn to channel it from a place of stillness, you no longer have to force anything because his unconscious begins to remember you, even when you're no longer around. This video isn't about theories. It's about real magnetism, about what touches him beyond the physical and binds him at the soul level. I'm going to share 5 keys that are completely different from anything you've heard before, so your self-love stops being just a beautiful concept and becomes the secret that makes him unable to let go of you. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe now. It's completely free for you, and it helps me out a lot. Ready? Let's go. Key number 1, how to make your self-love a magnetic presence that's felt without words. There's something no seduction workshop, no relationship book, and not even many therapy sessions teach, and it's this. A man doesn't truly get attached to what he sees. He gets attached to what he feels when you're present. Listen to this with your whole body. A man can admire your beauty, enjoy your company, get excited by your messages. But if there's nothing in you that leaves a silent imprint, an emotional echo, an invisible impression that lingers even when you're not there, then there is no real magnetism. And that something is your self-love transformed into presence. Not a speech, not affirmations taped to the mirror, not phrases repeated in your head, but an embodied vibration, a deep inner certainty that makes everything shift the moment you enter a room, even if you don't say a word. And I'm going to show you how to build that. But first, I want to share a story that brings this to life, a real experience. Her name is Lauren. She's 48 and was after a tough breakup with the father of her children, she decided to work on herself. Not to attract anyone, not to heal for another relationship, but to come home to herself with dignity. She started small. She got back into dancing, which she had loved since she was a little girl. She began looking at herself in the mirror differently, not with judgment, but with recognition. She spoke to herself kindly. She started listening to her body, allowing herself to rest, not pushing, enjoying solitude without feeling empty. For months, no one noticed any change. There were no transformation photos, no empowerment quotes posted online, no announcements about her process. But something was happening inside her, and then it happened. One night she went to a dinner with friends. No makeup, comfortable clothes, no intention of impressing anyone. But he, a man who had been part of that friend group for years, couldn't take his eyes off her. He admitted it later. It wasn't what you said. It wasn't how you dressed. It was something that felt like you were whole, like your inner world was locked with a key and only you had that key. And that's what drew me in. Do you feel it? Lauren didn't do anything. She simply was. And that was enough. Because when a woman has chosen herself over and over again, when she's rebuilt the altar of her worth with love, her energy becomes a temple. And a man who is emotionally awake cannot ignore a temple. Carl Jung said every human projects what they lack. But he also said that what is truly whole doesn't need to project. It emanates. And that's what makes a woman with true self-love irresistible. She no longer projects need. She radiates certainty. And I'll be straight with you. You don't need to change your body, become someone else, or collect techniques to get noticed. What you need is to enter that sacred frequency where you see yourself as enough. So how do you do that? Here comes the practical part. First, start talking to yourself like you're already the most valuable woman in the world. Not as self-deception, but as neurological training. Your brain doesn't distinguish between what is and what you repeat. If you speak to yourself with respect, it starts registering you as powerful. Second, look at where you still abandon yourself. How many times do you silence your discomfort to avoid making others uncomfortable? How many times do you say yes so you don't seem cold? How often do you change your plans, your timing, your desires for someone else? Every time you overextend, you're telling your subconscious, my worth is negotiable, and that contaminates your magnetic field. Third, connect with art. The art of moving with presence, the art of dressing for you, the art of sitting with your spine tall and your eyes unflinching. When your body embodies self-respect, your energy starts speaking for you. And finally, stay with yourself, even when you like someone, even when you want to get closer, even when you're afraid that if you don't give more, they'll walk away. Stay with you. That loyalty is the root of your attraction. Because, listen closely, a woman who is deeply rooted in her own world creates desire because she represents something the masculine soul longs for, a space that exists independently of him, and that drives him wild, not through manipulation, but by nature. Because there is no stronger magnetism than that of a woman who no longer seeks to be chosen, because she chooses herself every single day. Do you see now the real power of self-love? It's not armor, it's a lighthouse. And when that lighthouse is lit, he can't ignore you because his soul recognizes something rare, something you don't come across every day. And now pay attention because what's coming next is even more powerful. Key number 2, how to stop proving your worth and start radiating it silently. Before we go on, if this message is already stirring something inside you, hit that like and subscribe right now. That way YouTube knows this content matters and recommends it to others. Thank you so much. There's an invisible trap that catches many women, even those who see themselves as confident. A trap disguised as good intentions, as generous love, as being thoughtful, as wanting to give. But behind it all, there's a silent effort to prove you're worthy. And yes, just as you're hearing it, every time you over-explain, every time you bend over backward to please, every time you do emotional gymnastics, hoping he'll notice you, every time you justify his coldness with a new loving gesture, what your soul is secretly shouting is, "Do you see me now? Am I finally enough for you?" And the more you do that, the further you drift from your center. Because radiating self-love isn't about proving it. It's about living it, being it. It's about stopping the need to explain who you are and simply being. And I want to tell you a story that illustrates this in a powerful, almost brutal way. Her name is Rachel Adams, 46 years old, married for 18 years, and the mother of 2 teenagers. For years, she was the woman who did everything. The organizer, the peacekeeper, the one who remembered every birthday, the one who put out every fire, the one who kept everything running, at home with the family and in her husband's heart. But something inside her was slowly dimming. Every time she tried to have a deep conversation, he would change the subject. Every time she got dressed up with excitement, all he'd say was, "You look nice." Every time she tried to plan something special, he'd say he was tired. And every time she felt frustrated, she blamed herself for feeling that way. Maybe I'm asking for too much, and she'd think. Until one day in therapy, her therapist asked a question that completely disarmed her. "Why are you trying to convince him that you're valuable when you already are?" And Rory didn't know how to answer. That was the beginning of everything. She stopped chasing. She stopped explaining her emotions with a smile at the end, so she wouldn't seem too intense. She stopped cooking his favorite meals just to spark a reaction that never came. She stopped adjusting herself so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And it wasn't a punishment. It was a decision. She started reading at night instead of sitting around waiting for him to talk to her. She began going alone to her favorite cafe without waiting for him to come along. She started falling asleep with soft music in her headphones, adding beauty to her night, even if he was distant. And she didn't say anything. She didn't complain. She didn't write him a letter. She simply stepped away from that invisible place where she had always been, trying so hard to be enough. And then what happened? He started to feel something different in her, not because of what she was doing, but because of what she had stopped doing. No more forced explanations. No more need disguised as generosity. No more, "Look how much I give. Please see my worth." And that threw him off balance. Because the masculine soul can ignore you when you're trying to sell yourself, but it cannot look away when you've stopped begging. Weeks went by, and one day, while she was quietly making herself some tea, he came up to her and said, "You seem different. You look calmer, more, I don't know, more like yourself." She smiled. She didn't explain. She didn't get her hopes up. She didn't hug him as a reward for noticing the obvious. She simply said, "I'm starting to listen to myself." And that's when something in his eyes changed. Because for the first time, he felt that if he didn't do something, if he didn't wake up, if he didn't start honoring what he had in front of him, he could lose her. Not to a fight, not to an argument, but to the quiet dignity with which she had begun to fully inhabit herself. Listen closely and don't forget this. As long as you're trying to prove your worth, you'll still come across as someone who doesn't fully believe in it herself. But the moment you stop doing things to convince him, you begin to emanate a frequency that needs no translation. And he'll feel it, not as a threat, but as a wake-up call. Because a man's soul doesn't connect with someone who begs for attention. It connects with someone who has already chosen herself. And now, imprint this affirmation into your mind. I no longer have to prove what I already am. If someone can't feel it, they're not meant to hold it. Repeat this to yourself daily, especially in those moments when you feel like giving more. Because sometimes silence is your loudest cry. And if this is resonating with you, just wait for what's coming next. In the next key, you'll learn how to look at a man from your center without chasing, without controlling, without giving up your power, and how to make him start seeking you from a place deeper than he's ever accessed before. Get ready. This is just getting started. Third key, how to use your emotional routine as a ritual of magnetic attraction. Let me tell you this with all the certainty I've gained from hearing hundreds of stories. A woman who truly inhabits herself from the first moment of the day doesn't need to beg for anyone's attention. A woman who turns her emotional routine into a sacred ritual begins to emit a vibration so magnetic, so different, so intriguing that no emotionally receptive man can fully ignore her. Because what you do with your energy when no one is watching determines how others perceive you, even if they never speak to you. And no, this isn't some cheap kind of magic. This is deep psychology. Carl Jung said that the unconscious does not distinguish between inner reality and outer reality. What you do to yourself is what the world reflects back to you. So if every morning the first thing you do is check if he messaged you, if he reacted, if he noticed you, then your world is revolving around his validation. But if every morning the first thing you do is reconnect with yourself, give thanks for your existence, care for your emotional state, give yourself presence, then something inside you begins to change. And he, even if he can't understand it rationally, will feel it. Not because of what you post, not because of what you say, but because of what you radiate. Let me share a powerful story. Ariana, 49 years old, single mom, had just come out of a complicated relationship in which, for years, she had felt invisible. When she started therapy, her self-esteem was shattered. She'd say things like, I feel like I have to do something extraordinary just to be seen. Otherwise, I don't exist. And every time she started talking to a new man, she would fall into the same automatic pattern, being overly available, giving too much, trying to prove what a great partner she could be. Until one day her therapist told her, you don't need to change how you love. You need to change how you treat yourself when you're not loving anyone. That sentence shook her, and that's when the real work began. Not on the outside, on the inside. She started redesigning her emotional routine as if it were her own temple. Every morning, instead of checking social media, she lit a candle and sat in silence for 5 minutes. Every afternoon, before replying to a message, she'd ask herself whether that message brought her peace or triggered anxiety. Every night, instead of seeking virtual company, she wrote in her journal 3 things she had done that day for herself. Nobody saw this. Nobody knew about it. But her emotional field started to shift. And then something amazing happened, sooner than expected. A man who had left her life months earlier, a man who had never shown much interest, suddenly reached out again. But Ariana didn't get excited. She didn't light fireworks. She watched. She read. And she asked herself, does this person add to my new state of being or drain it? Because when you treat your emotional routine as a ritual of connection with yourself, something changes in your nervous system. You no longer tolerate what you once accepted. You no longer need constant validation. You no longer live to be loved because you are now fully living inside your own love. And the paradox is that right at that moment, when you stop bending over backward to fit into his world, that's when he starts to wonder, What changed? Why doesn't she feel as accessible now? Why am I thinking about her more when before I was the one keeping her waiting? And the answer is simple. Because you stopped seeing yourself as a woman who has to do extraordinary things to be desired, and started treating yourself as a woman who is extraordinary, even in the ordinary. The way you pour your coffee with care, the clothes you choose with love, the music you play in your room, the way you speak to yourself when no one's listening. All of that becomes a vibrational field. And even if he can't explain it, he feels it. He feels that you're no longer emotionally available for breadcrumbs. He feels he can't reach you with the same ease as before. He feels something has changed, and that this change is shutting him out of something that used to belong to him without effort. And that's when he starts looking for you. Not for what you do for him, but for what you do for yourself. So make yourself this promise. I will never again give myself to the world before giving to myself first. I will no longer try to attract anyone out of need. I will begin to turn my emotional routine into my sanctuary, and from that space, I will let the world respond. Because true self-love isn't something you post about. It's something you practice. And when you practice it daily, like you're the most valuable thing you have, the entire universe, including him, starts to see you with new eyes. Today's affirmation: every gesture I offer to myself is a message to the world about how much I'm worth. My routine isn't a habit, it's reverence. And if that touched something deep in you, don't go anywhere. In the next key, I'll show you how to set boundaries and turn them into sensual art. It'll be eye-opening, and you'll need it. Fourth key, how to turn your boundaries into sensual art without resistance or explanation. There's something the masculine unconscious cannot resist, and it's not your body. It's not your tenderness. It's not your availability. It's your ability to set a boundary without resistance, without anxiety, without needing to explain a thing. Your ability to hold your no with such presence, such calm, such certainty, that it becomes an act of seduction in itself. You know why? Because when you don't justify your boundary, you're sending a clear message. My worth is not up for debate. You're saying without words, I don't need to convince you that what I feel is valid. I feel it, and that's enough for me. And for a man who's used to controlling the narrative, who tests the waters to see how far he can go, that is deeply unsettling, and, though he may not admit it, incredibly attractive. Because true magnetism isn't born when your no feels like punishment. It's born when your no becomes an art form. Let me tell you a story that shows this perfectly. Just listen. I won't spoil anything. Her name is Madeline, 36 years old, a writer, single for the past 3 years. She met a man at a book fair. They connected instantly. He was an editor, charismatic, cultured, charming, but also impatient. He wanted everything fast. After just 2 dates, he began to push. Suggestive comments, flirtatious wordplay, messages that were getting more and more intense. And Madeline, who already knew her pattern, rushing into things, giving too much, and ending up feeling empty, started to feel that discomfort again. She recognized the same old script: please give in, wait for him to appreciate what she brings. But this time, she chose differently. On the 3rd date, when he tried to escalate physical contact, Madeline simply looked at him, smiled, and gently pulled away. He asked, "Is something wrong?" And she, without changing her tone, without getting rigid or defensive, just said, "It's not a no to you. It's a yes to me." Silence. He tried to joke. She didn't take the bait. He tried to argue. She didn't engage. She just held his gaze, with calm, with sweetness, with a kind of unshakable confidence that left him speechless. And here's what's wild: what happened next. He didn't pull away. He didn't go cold. He didn't get offended. He wrote to her that same night, and he said, "There's something about the way you set boundaries that won't let me rest. You make me want to earn every step." That was a revelation for Madeline, because for the first time, she didn't have to get harsh or defensive to set a boundary. She didn't have to explain it. She didn't have to justify it. She just had to own it. And when she did, he didn't feel rejected. He felt intrigued. Because when a woman knows how to say no from her center, that no doesn't push someone away, It draws them in. It ignites something deeper than physical desire. It touches the most awake part of the masculine soul. So hear this loud and clear. You don't need to defend your boundaries like they're a courtroom argument. You can turn your boundaries into a dance, a subtle, delicious, unbreakable way of showing someone that access to you isn't automatic. It's sacred. And when he understands that, when he feels it, without you needing to shout it, his unconscious registers something powerful. She's not here to beg for love. She's here to share her truth. And if I'm not up to that standard, I'm out. And that, my dear, doesn't push him away. It shakes him. Because he suddenly realizes he can't treat you like he treats everyone else. Because you are not like everyone else. You are the woman who turned her boundaries into a part of her sensual language. Who knows that a well-timed no can build more connection than 1,000 forced yeses? Who doesn't use her body to win love? Because she loves herself so much that her body, her voice, her time, and her emotions are no longer available to those who haven't earned them. Today's affirmation: my boundaries are not walls, they are sacred jewels, and anyone who wants to be close to me must be able to respect them without me needing to shout them. And if this stirred something inside you, stick around, because in the next and final key, I'll show you how to stay rooted in your authenticity even when you really like someone, and how that, far from pushing them away, draws them to you on an even deeper level. Because love doesn't blossom where there's need. It blossoms where there's truth. See you in the fifth key, and get ready. It's the most transformational one. Fifth key: how to stay true to yourself, even when you really like someone, and let that attract him even more. This is where most people fall, where so many women, who seem so grounded, so clear, so confident, start to fade without even realizing it. Do you know when? When that man shows up, the one you really like, the one who finally seems different. The one who looks at you the way you always dreamed someone would. And just when you thought you'd finally learn to love yourself, to set boundaries, to hold your power, you find yourself going back to the same old patterns, tolerating more than you should, explaining yourself too much, being available too soon, putting your authenticity on hold, just so he won't walk away. And that is the most delicate moment. Because there's no greater test than staying true to yourself when your heart is on the line. It's easy to be yourself when you've got nothing to lose. But real self-love is tested when you're emotionally invested. That's when everything you've learned is put to the test. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this with brutal clarity. Her name is Martha, 39 years old, a clinical psychologist. She had been without a deep relationship for nearly 6 years. She'd gone through an immense process of healing, introspection, and growth. She had read everything there was to read, cried everything there was to cry, and she felt ready, whole, strong, grounded. Until Ethan appeared, a different kind of man, attentive, present, the kind who listens with his whole being. He didn't just seek her out, he truly saw her. He asked deep questions, spoke about his wounds, his story, his soul. And Martha fell, not out of naivety, but because her heart had been genuinely moved for the first time in a long while. And that's when the slip began. The first time he canceled a date, she understood. The second time, she did too. The third, she told herself, we all have bad days. And soon she began waiting for his availability as if it were a form of approval. She, who used to meditate every morning, started checking her phone the moment she woke up. She, who used to put herself first, even going out alone if no one else could, started leaving gaps in her schedule just in case he messaged. She, who no longer lived to please, started saying yes to things she wasn't really excited about. And the most painful part, she didn't even realize she was doing it, because she was doing it with joy, with openness, with that sparkle you feel when something begins that seems to have soul. Until one day in therapy, her therapist asked, "What happened to your authenticity?" And it hit like a sweet knife, because she realized that her way of relating to Ethan wasn't a regression. It was a deeper lesson. This was the moment to integrate everything she'd learned, not to protect herself, but to express herself, to show up as she truly was, even if that meant he might walk away. So she did something that changed everything. The next time he came to her with a casual, "I'll see you tonight," she didn't say yes right away. She paused, checked in with herself, and replied, "I'd love to, but tonight I have time set aside for myself that I'm not going to move. Can we plan for tomorrow instead?" He fell silent. Then he said, "I like that about you, that you don't let yourself get absorbed by anyone." And Martha felt something unusual, not just pride, not just peace. She felt that, for the first time, self-love wasn't a shield, it was a bridge to a more honest connection. And here's the revelation. When you hold on to your authenticity, even when you really like someone, it's not being difficult, it's being real. And what's real, even from a strategic standpoint, earns admiration. A man who's ready for a meaningful relationship won't walk away because you have your own schedule, your own interests, your own space. He walks away if you have nothing of your own to offer beyond him. Because if you dissolve the moment he shows up, he won't stay out of love. He'll stay out of habit, or he'll leave without really knowing why. But if you stay grounded, if you keep reading your books, practicing your rituals, spending time with your friends, nurturing your body, your spirit, your space, if you stay you, with or without him, then he begins to perceive you as a world, not a satellite. And that's when the magic begins. That's when your worth stops being tied to how much he chooses you and starts resonating as a frequency that forces him to reevaluate how he loves. Because you're not showing up from need, you're showing up from choice. And from that point on, you don't need to announce your self-worth. It's felt, it's breathed, it's sensed in every gesture, every pause, every boundary you uphold with softness, but with strength. And that he cannot ignore. Carl Jung said that true individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, is also the greatest act of unconscious attraction. Because the soul doesn't crave what's easy, the soul craves what's true. So here's your affirmation to close this final key. Even if I adore you, I don't abandon myself. Even if I desire you, I don't dissolve. I am me, and that is what draws you in. And now that you've made it this far, I want to tell you one last thing. Your authenticity isn't something to protect with fear. It's something to celebrate with power. Because when you learn to stand in yourself without giving yourself away, no man can forget you. Not today, not ever. And if this message stirred something inside you, write in the comments below. I choose myself, even when I fall in love. And share this video with someone who still doesn't understand that the greatest act of attraction is truth embodied. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to hit that powerful like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell without fail. But above all, don't leave just yet. There's so much more waiting for you. Dive into the other videos here on the channel and keep expanding your energy and your power. I'll see you in the next video.